we fund this mess. We arm this mess. So our commitments don't come from a place of moral purity or objectivity or neutrality. It's like, yo, I need to stop this fire because I'm the one that said it. And I think when we see ourselves as voters and taxpayers who create these conditions, I think that also pushes people. So there's the this is just wrong. There's the it's your fault. And there's the even if you care about yourself, we can fix it together. But also we can only fix it together. Those things are important.
Good evening, beautiful people. I'm CJ Lawrence, the host of the JustWorld podcast. This is our very first launch episode, and we're super excited to be here. We're doing this in collaboration with Mississippi for JustWorld and Tougaloo College. And for the very first episode, we have the world-renowned Dr. Marc Lamont Hill.
Oh my God, I'm the first guest. That's a lot of pressure, man.
Hey, look, man. Well, we know you up to the challenge, so we're super excited to have you here, bro. You just did a dynamic job, actually, downstairs, and so I'm just thinking like, damn, how do we follow that? But seriously, Marc, I'd really love to know just, is this your first time here in Mississippi?
Yeah, it is. No, it's not my first time in Mississippi. It's my first time in Jackson.
Okay.
I've sort of passed through before, but I hadn't had the opportunity to really settle into the town. It's my first time at the college here at Tougaloo, which I'm disappointed to have in myself to have waited this long because it's such a beautiful campus, such great people, such a great institution, such a great tradition. So it's great to be here. The only thing I wish is, one, that I could spend more time here, and two, that it could be a little bit warmer. I feel like I brought some bad luck or something, man.
Nah, man. You didn't bring no bad luck from Philly, bro. It's just that time of year, bro. So
okay, all right then. I feel bad. I thought it was gonna be like 80. I didn't even bring no coat.
Hey, look, this is the first day I got to bundle up. So hey, look, we get a hint of cold down here. We bundled up, bro. So
I know.
I had to take my skull cap off so I wouldn't sweat. But no, I wanted to start with where you started today. Each new generation must discover its mission, fulfill it, or betray it, is what you spoke to. Being here on campus at Tougaloo College, that seems like an appropriate way to have that conversation. You talked about colonialism, and you talked about people being expendable once they are no longer
exploitable,
exploited. Can you just briefly kind of tap into that?
Well, the first thing I think it's important for us to have clarity, political clarity. We need to know what's at stake here. We need to know what our material conditions are, and we need to know what's going to get us free. I think every generation, leaning off of that Fanon quote, I think every generation's mission is to get us closer to freedom. But what that looks like and how that looks, what the project is determined generationally. It's not for me to say what the next one will do or what the previous one should have done. But I think at the core, we're all preoccupied, or should be preoccupied, with freedom. And so I spent a lot of time thinking about it. And at this juncture in history, it becomes even messier to meditate on freedom because the world puts so many messages and exacts so much pressure on us to imagine freedom in ways that won't liberate us. Like if you imagine freedom as capitalism, if you imagine freedom as getting rich, if you imagine freedom as having more than somebody else, then it veers you off the path of a more humane and robust vision of freedom. So it's like keeping all those other pressures at arm's length on the one hand, and then also trying to actually advance a real project on the other. It's tough.
Appreciate that. So it feels like we're on the precipice of or really in the initial throes of an authoritarian type of regime that we're witnessing. When I see things like the ICE raids, for example, that are happening across the country, but also the occupations of ICE in communities like Chicago and DC,
yeah.
Our communities. I immediately think of things like Gestapo type of tactics, and I'm really wondering if there are any actual parallels that we can observe.
Oh,
from what's happening.
For sure. Ain't nothing but parallels around here, man. It's tough to watch this happen in real time because so many lives are being lost, so many people are being disrupted, so many families are being dismantled, so many rights are being violated. What Donald Trump is doing and what his administration is doing is allowing the Constitution to be trampled upon, international law to be trampled upon, as we allow this kind of xenophobic ideology and this authoritarian kind of fascist impulse to shape how we navigate public policy. We're manufacturing a crisis, and then we're creating a solution to this manufactured crisis that serves the broader interests of the Trump administration. And I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to say that Donald Trump is normalizing military occupation of cities, normalizing troops in the streets, normalizing curfews, normalizing, particularly in our communities, Black and brown communities, this type of presence, which could be used for anything from him staying in office forever to simply policing and surveilling our streets in ways that expand the criminal justice, the military industrial, the prison industrial complex, as well as the military industrial complex. You know, it's the monetization of military. It's the monetization of violence that is particularly alarming to me because there's always money to be made, and as long as the profit is in our misery, then we're going to continue to see the conditions of misery expanded and intensified.
I appreciate that answer. It's got me thinking about, for example, I know that there was a bit of a response from some when ICE initially began targeting migrants and targeting those who spoke out, students who spoke out on issues like Palestine. And we were witnessing that. And for a while, maybe some of us, and when I say us, I mean Black folk, might have thought that ICE weren't eventually going to come to our door. How is it that we how attentive should we be right now to the tactics that they are beginning to deploy and employ?
Yeah, as attentive as humanly possible. I mean, part of it is the moral question. Part of it is the moral impulse that we should feel to say this is wrong, it's happening over there. But it's also, as I was saying downstairs, the reality that what's happening over there is eventually going to get over here. But even while it's over there, some other things are happening that we might not recognize. You know, we're seeing the expansion of the security state. We're seeing the expansion of the military state. We're watching our country devolve in such a way that people, that the outside other is being treated like a certain kind of threat that doesn't deserve the protections of the Constitution, that doesn't deserve due process, et cetera. And if we keep normalizing that, then it only expands. So we should be attentive to all of this. We should be attentive to it because it's the right thing to do, but also even if you just care about you, even if it's just about self-interest, these things are coming to your doorstep pretty fast, pretty soon.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, when you think about it, there's a local impact that we observe directly. There's a national impact, and there's also the international aspect. You can see a nexus between what's happening here, even in Jackson, Mississippi, when it comes to things like crisis with water, and the way that the state behaves in perpetuating that, and what's happening in Palestine with the deprivation of food with Palestinians in Gaza.
Yeah.
And the same in Congo and Sudan. And so you see that there is a parallel there between what is happening here and what is happening there. One of the things that social media has allowed is a bit more of transparency with entities like Al Jazeera, with I wouldn't call them influencers, but reporters on the ground like Motaz Aziz.
Yeah.
These are allowing us to see the world differently than we may have ever before when it comes to legacy media.
For sure.
Legacy media often, tells us one story, and we are now having our eyes open in a way that we now are having conversations around these subjects that we've never had before. you know, from my estimation, and this is my parallel, I'm not putting words in your mouth at all, but when I witnessed it, I began to wonder to myself, like, what would it have? How would people have responded if they were observing in real time what was happening during the Holocaust via social media, via a YouTube, via Instagram, and what we're observing now? How is that distinguishable from what was occurring at that time, and how do we reconcile what we're currently witnessing?
Yeah, I'm always reluctant to compare these types of moments and these types of atrocities. But there are some interesting sort of threads that cut across or that run through all of the moments that you raise. I think part of what we have to recognize is that when things are happening in real time, some people will be outraged, many people won't be. People always say, if I was back in the day, I'd be doing this, I'd be doing this. Like, bro, we in the day. And you ain't doing nothing.
Right.
That's not unsurprising. During the Nazi Holocaust, there was outrage around the globe, but there's also a lot of indifference that was fueled by everything from anti-Semitism to a lack of access to media, to proper media representations. But there certainly was outrage. When you mention what's happening in Gaza, I see something very similar. There are people who are outraged by it. There are people who are disgusted by it. But there are lots of people who are not paying attention to it, or they've bought into the dominant media narrative of what's going on over there, which doesn't invite sympathy in the same way. All these things are always happening at the same time. When you think about who marched for civil rights, very small percentage of black people, under 15, around 14, 15% of black people participated in one action during the 1960s. Most people didn't. And so when I have that as my kind of historical backdrop, my expectation for what people are going to do or how people are going to respond to injustice, my expectations are very different. But with some distance, Omar El-Akkad wrote a book called One Day Everyone Will Have Been Against This, referring to what's happening in Gaza right now. One day everyone will have been against this. And that's the truth, right? In the moment, people ain't saying much. And then one day everybody's like, oh, I can't believe that happened. This was awful. I was always there, This moment is very similar in that way. I think our job is to grow the number of people who are really outraged right now, who are really against it right now. But also, rather than just hold a whole lot of sort of antipathy toward the people who aren't against it right now, I try to spend my time doing political education. I try to spend my time organizing. I try to spend my time teaching. I try to spend my time doing sort of radical journalism, doing things that will increase that number and focusing less on what I don't have and focusing more on how I can invest in what I do have.
I think that's an excellent point. And the reason that I think is excellent is because I do think that this is a moment that is ripe for more education and activation. I do wonder how we make maybe people who may be unfamiliar with what's happening across the world or what's happening on the global stage. How do we introduce them to this subject matter in a way that is perhaps not intimidating, or in a way that allows them to see themselves in this struggle?
There's a few ways to think about it. I mean, one is always, again, for me, the most pressing moral and ethical questions. People are suffering, and if we have the capacity to stop it, we should. We should care because human beings are dying. Full stop. But then we recognize that people aren't always driven just by that. Or, in complete fairness, their own worlds are so messed up that there's a finite amount of time you have to worry about, say, Congo, or to worry about Haiti if there's food insecurity right here in my neighborhood. If I got lead in the water right here in my neighborhood, right? So part of our work has to be tying those two things together so that people don't see them as separate issues or a zero-sum game where I either got to fight for my stuff or fight for your stuff, but instead to say, why are we fighting over this narrow slice and allowing the other 99% to be consumed by the 1%. So part of political education, having a kind of robust kind of analysis is showing people that the systems of power and the systems of control that lead us to have lead in our water, or that lead us to be the victims of police militarization, are the same ones that are leading to these things elsewhere. That the same people that are sort of exploiting, say, Hurricane Katrina, are the same ones who are exploiting an earthquake in Haiti, and what might be a awful hurricane right now in Cuba, Hispaniola, Haiti, etc. Right? Disaster capitalism happens across the board, and the same people doing all of it. So suddenly, if I understand that piece, then I see that the struggles are connected, and the conditions are connected.
You hit perfectly on.
No, but there's one more piece, though. I just want to say one more piece.
Please do.
The other piece, though, is for those of us in the global north, those of us in the so-called first world, those of us in empires like the United States, it's our fault. Like, we created this mess. We fund this mess. We arm this mess. So our commitments don't come from a place of moral purity or objectivity or neutrality. It's like, yo, I need to stop this fire because I'm the one that said it. And I think when we see ourselves as voters and taxpayers who create these conditions, I think that also pushes people. So there's the this is just wrong. There's the it's your fault. And there's the even if you care about yourself, we can fix it together. But also we can only fix it together. Those things are important.
I think where you were taking it just a moment ago really was actually where I wanted to go with it as well. We're in a process where technically November 1st, they may potentially cut things like SNAP benefits.
SNAP, yeah.
And that's clearly rooted in racism and, the belief that we are most dependent on those benefits. I wanted you to talk about the reality of dive into the reality of SNAP benefits. What is the motivation behind the tactic that they're deploying? And again, I'm definitely not putting words in your mouth, but I see a parallel between the tactics that they're utilizing here in attempting to starve people and tactics that are being used in a global way to starve people as well.
I mean, that's for sure. I mean, the parallels are very clear. People are being starved. People are being underdeveloped. Land is being stolen. People are being, communities being divested from, but also extracted. Their resources are being extracted. This is happening across the world. The idea of the undeserving poor becomes a kind of framework for getting public consent for draconian policy. In the 1980s, we saw it, right? When as the welfare state was shrinking in the beginning of the Reagan administration, you started to see people sort of promote these narratives of the undeserving poor. The welfare queen became one of them. When you say welfare queen, people don't think of white women in Mississippi, right? They don't recognize that in the aggregate, the biggest recipient of these federal fundings are white, female, and young. They think about Taquanda from Cabrini Green Projects in Chicago. They think of Shaniqua from Richard Allen Projects in Philly, right? We racialize poverty. We darken the face of poverty to make it acceptable. So when I think that the face of public assistance is black, then I also attach all the white supremacist narratives about blackness to it. So she's not just on welfare. She's also, got too many kids. She's sexually, she's lascivious. She's immoral. She's untrustworthy. She's collecting welfare checks in 5 states. You start to see this on all the TV shows.
Right.
And so they create a narrative so that the public is voting against her. They're not voting against welfare. They're voting against her. But because America already has contempt for black women, that becomes an easy sell, even to black people sometimes. And when we look to Haiti, and we have these colonial narratives about Haitians being uncivilized, violent, ungovernable. Then we go to Congo, and then we go to Palestine, and we look in Sudan, and et cetera, et cetera. We see these narratives play out over and over again. And so part of, again, it becomes part of a disposability politic.
We're seeing and observing a bit of conflict that's taking place with Venezuela.
Yeah.
Right now. And, for a lot of us who are not well versed in foreign affairs, we may not really be familiar with the dynamics between the U.S. and Venezuela.
Yeah, the U.S. has had you used to say that with Cuba, right? The U.S. has a deep, one, there's the sort of exploitative relationship the United States has to Latin America.
Yeah.
Then there's the kind of paternalism they have toward Latin America, right? Then there's the long-standing sort of history of the United States involving itself, or even meddling is probably a better word, in the affairs of Cuba and the affairs of Venezuela and the affairs of Nicaragua, right? Always to advance the U.S.'s position. The U.S. doesn't have feelings; it has interests. Mm-hmm. And the point here is that the U.S. is always managing its own interests by establishing geopolitical control or geopolitical relationships that benefit them and not the people, although it does it under the banner of helping the people. Let me say it simpler. We're going to go over there and liberate these people. We're going to go over there and stop drug trafficking. Oh, we're going to go over there and police narco terrorism right now. We're going to do these things under the banner of making the world safer. We're going to liberate Iraq. Mm-hmm. Right? We're going to do these things under the banner of freedom and this American exceptionalism that says that we are uniquely positioned to be moral stewards of the world and to advance our version and vision of freedom everywhere. But somehow those things only play out in places where we can get oil. Those places only play out when we get a better military position, only play out when we can get other resources out of the place. It's not shocking that this happens. And so when Trump says that I'm going to suddenly turn into the policeman of the Caribbean, I'm going to turn to the policeman of Latin America, and I am so concerned with narco traffic and narco terrorism that I am not only going to involve myself in policing these things, I'm going to bomb boats. I'm going to destroy entire sectors of this industry. But I'm going to do, and I don't mean the drug industry, I mean the broader industry, and I'm going to do so under the banner of justice when in fact I'm contravening international law. Mm-hmm. I'm engaging in extrajudicial assassinations. And because, again, just like with the welfare queen, we say those are bad people. Mm-hmm. Oh, he's Venezuelan. Oh, he's Nicaraguan. Oh, he's Colombian. Oh, he's Cuban. So therefore, they're bad people, and bad people don't deserve justice. Mm-hmm. The world may turn away, but Latin America is not turning away. Argentina is not turning away. Mexico is not turning away. Right? They're watching this, and they're saying, wait a minute, what's going on here? Even at moments when they've been complicit, this is a moment where they're not. Where they're actually standing up and saying, wait a minute, this can't happen because the United States is now, once again, advancing beyond its own position and its own rights. What's happening in Latin America is no different than what's been happening in the Middle East. It's the same thing. The U.S. shouldn't have troops on the ground in Syria right now. The U.S. didn't have a right to be in Iraq still, right? These military occupations. But again, we've justified military occupations, right? Those people are ungovernable. So if we stay in Iraq or we stay in Syria, or our client state, Israel, stays in the West Bank or on the perimeter of Gaza, it's okay because those people can't govern themselves and we'd have chaos if we didn't. And then if I can smuggle that narrative back home, I can explain why I'm tearing up D.C. and won't leave D.C. And I can explain why I won't leave Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I can explain why I'm blowing up boats instead of taking people through the ICC or the ICJ in this case. Mm-hmm. So it all ties together.
Yeah. No, yeah. The power, if America has one thing, it's the power of perception and spin. And that's something that it is done, power, perception, spin, and propaganda. And that's something that is done incredibly well with regard to misinformation. One of the things that came out recently was that there was a ceasefire that was supposed to have taken place. When the ceasefire was initially announced, they when most media outlets went out of their way to put Trump's name in it when speaking to the fact that there was a ceasefire. What we now understand, though, is that Palestinians are still being attacked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's unfair to put Trump's name in it because Trump is right. He's tied up in all of this. Mm-hmm. The Trump Board of Peace is the kind of mechanism they've created to ensure that the ceasefire maintains itself in Gaza. This is a Trump project. There's a long history of American presidents wanting to seal their legacy by creating peace in the Middle East. Trump tried it this first time around, with Jared Kushner. He tried it with the Abraham Accords, which is really just a defense deal. It's just a bunch of weapons deals. We got peace with Morocco. When did they not? I mean, when was the last time anybody was at war with Morocco? Right. So the idea that these are peace deals, when there was no military aggression with many of these countries with whom they make the deal, suggests that there's something else at play. Clinton did it with the Clinton Accords in 2000. Oslo was the first kind of attempt, 1993. That was the kind of major moment toward two-state solutions. And my point is, none of this stuff works. And none of them are in good faith because none of them are committed to Palestinian liberation, or more importantly, Palestinian self-determination. That word self-determination has to be at the forefront of the conversation. A lot of times they'll say, I'm for Palestinian rights. They'll say, I want peace, I want safety, I want Palestinian rights. Ask them, are they with Palestinian self-determination? So this ceasefire, I mean, I don't want to pretend that there's no value to it. Fewer Gazans are dying today than it were a month ago. Mm-hmm. The problem is it sustainable? No. This is the second peace deal in the last year. Israel violates peace treaties, peace accords all the time. Israel's never honored one. The UN partition plan in 1947 was supposed to do that. The Peel Agreement, 37. We're going down the list, right? This stuff don't ever work. Because Israel's fundamental position is that it has a right to all of historic Palestine. But when we get to the Gaza thing in particular, how do you make a peace deal without Palestinian leadership at the table? They didn't even put them at the press conference. There wasn't a Palestinian in a bunch. And to decide which Palestinians get to be the leadership is a deep problem. That there's a deep paternalism in this plan that doesn't account for the Palestinian people's ability to produce their own leadership. The time windows are vague. The metrics are unclear. Allowing the West and the Western imperial nations to be the stewards of this new Palestine, which is really just, I mean, as Trump said, this is going to be a new French Riviera. This is a business deal. Trump's peace deals are business deals. These are neoliberal business deals designed to produce as much money as possible for the smallest amount of people imaginable. That's all this is about. But to your point, it ain't even working in the short term because people are dying in Gaza right now. But also, Gaza isn't being rebuilt. Every hospital in Gaza is non-functional for the most part. Every school in Gaza has been going for 2 years. The water system, the civil infrastructure, the roads, the cemeteries, the churches and mosques, it's all gone. It's all gone. But when we talk about Palestine, we can't just talk about Gaza. Right. We have to talk about the West Bank. We have to talk about East Jerusalem. We have to talk about the Golan Heights. We have to talk about the Sinai. And right now, thousands of people have been killed in the West Bank since October 7th. Settler raids are happening, and all this is happening as Israeli settlements continue to be built in the West Bank, which is a violation of international law, which the U.S. refuses to hold them accountable for when we have the most power as a permanent member of the UN Security Council. So this peace deal is not a peace deal. It's something that's going to be done to pacify the world and Palestinian leadership, they hope. Israel is, if you and I were sharing a pizza and we say, how are you going to split the pizza? And I say, well, let me think about it, and I eat a slice. Then I said, we could cut it this way. We could cut it that way. Then I eat another slice. So now we could divide it into two separate boxes, or we could share from the same box, and I eat another one, right? That's what Israel's doing, right? As they keep talking about the peace plan, they keep taking up more land to the point that there's nothing left to divide. And that's the greater Israel plan that the Israeli right wing is very explicitly saying they want. But Netanyahu, over the last few years, has, because of his own political circumstances, has had to partner with the far right, the Bezalel Smotriches, the Itamar Ben-Gavirs of the world, so that they have to. So Netanyahu's moving even further to the right, much like Trump. Trump don't give a damn about nothing. He don't think about nothing. Trump doesn't have feelings about anything, but he knows that the power rests in these interests, like the evangelicals, right? And he knows that by connecting with them, he gets more power. But by doing that, his agenda keeps moving more and more to the right. And it's not a coincidence that those evangelicals, they're anti-Semitic oftentimes, but they love Israel. So even those two things are connected. Yeah, I know we got to go soon.
Look, hey, they were signaling me for time, and I'm thoroughly enjoying just being able to sit down with you.
I love this podcast. I hope that this is the first invitation of many for me, but I can't wait to follow it as you bring on just a whole sea of great guests and to have a whole series of important conversations. Man, y'all doing important work.
We appreciate you.
Appreciate you, bro.